Well, I know some of these telexes you've just seen for the first time today, but it's amazing to me that at the bottom it'll say additional handling instructions. Information contained herein is not to be repeated or releasable to press or public in any form at any time. And so I'm reading through these, and certainly in the vicinity of Yakutat Bay, with at least 2 still alive, is the telex. This is the FBI. I mean, I'm looking at them right now. Room 7404, phone, and it's so bizarre. The phone number is five digits, and I mean, these are old. These are 35 years old as of last week, October 18th, 72. So it seems to me that for you, of course, we're not just talking about the Congressman for Alaska. We're talking about your father, but you had done the History Channel did a program on the disappearance of your father, and you were telling me, and please, you can go to the library and get copies of that. I mean, you can find it all over. Please do look into that. But one of the things that you had told me was that that there were no longer any records kept, that they had been destroyed. However, didn't you receive something after having that national television coverage?
Right. There was when after the roll call article released in '93, we approached the government and asked for all of the aerial photographs that were taken with the SR-71 spy planes that were used at the time, and all of the other records, so we could look at what they did in that particular area. And the government informed us, the Air Force informed us, that none of that material had been retained, that it had all been destroyed. When we went on the air with some of this in the last few years, actually a box of archives did show up that have quite a bit of information. We're still following up on that. The reality is the government lies. My family's been in government 50 years, and I can tell you, they lie. The Nixon administration was famous for it. The current administration is becoming famous for it. But the fact of the matter is that people are entitled to the truth. And in this case, if a congressman can be disappeared, what does that mean to the rest of us in this country? And I think we need to get to the truth. I think we need the same kind of whistleblowing that occurred in South Africa after the change in government there. Mm-hmm. They actually had truth commissions where people come forward and tell the truth and be given amnesty, be forgiven, which is a very high attribute. And I think in the American government there are so many instances of abuse. We need to provide an opportunity for people to clear their conscience, come forward, and be forgiven. But we're entitled to the truth, whether it's this situation, whether it's the Kennedy situation, or any number of other circumstances that have been hidden from us and hidden from public view. This is not the kind of government that was intended over 200 years ago.
So I know we just have a couple minutes left, and I wonder, you haven't been able, I don't know if you had a funeral as a family for your father or a memorial service. You haven't had a body to bury, and you probably never will. But to have the truth over what happened on the day of your father's disappearance and presumable death, what would it mean? What would it mean? Would that be?
Well, it's a sense of finality. I mean, there was a ceremony that was done in 82 or 83. I can't remember exactly. It was a cenotaph, which is a place in Washington, D.C., where there's a small graveyard where when bodies aren't recovered of congressional leaders, they actually have a place for them. And it's happened before. It just hadn't happened in a long, long time. So there was that kind of a ceremony that sort of brought some closure, at least for some of us. But the closure will never be there, any more than it is for someone missing someone in action in combat or, as you say, in a fishing vessel. It's not unusual in Alaska to lose someone in the wilderness, but it never does end. For me, it was a stimulus. For my brothers and sisters, a stimulus. Because at those points, those very difficult points in life are opportunities to either fall from where you sit as an individual or to rise above those circumstances. And I can say that my father's disappearance changed my life, changed my brothers and sisters' lives, and motivated us towards public service in a way that perhaps nothing else ever would have. And so even in the darkest of that event were some very good things.
Absolutely. Dr. Nick Begich has been our guest. I'm actually going to post the links to all of these telexes so that you can see them yourself over at KUDO1080.com. I'll do that later today. Thank you so much. You've been so generous with your time. Please show up for the lecture tomorrow. That's right. And by the way, the telexes were from Roll Call. And show up tomorrow night from 5 to 7. I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. Stay tuned for CC and Aaron. Don't forget, I'm just a girl from Homer, painting a red state blue, one stroke at a time.